Hello, hello. How's everyone doing? We are so glad you are here. Welcome back to our K-3 summer series. And I would love to know in the chat if you were here last week when we discussed ecosystems. So if you were here, let us know, say yes. And if you weren't here, it's okay. But we'd just like to know how many of you are joining us again this week. And today's session, we're going to be talking about read-alouds, and we're going to focus in on vocabulary. So we're going to go ahead and I want to just introduce myself. My name is McKinney Coleman. Hello. And I am from the Rollins Center for Language and Literacy. I was a kindergarten teacher for 5 years, just giving you some background. And then I was a reading coach for 7 years. And also, I've been at the Rollins Center for 6 years. And my position here currently is as the instructional designer and content specialist. So basically, what that means is some of the courses that we are highlighting in this summer series, I help to develop. So I'm so glad that you are here today. And we're trying to make this course or training as engaging as we can. So you will hear us throughout time asking you to give some answers in the chat, or we're going to have a breakout session later on just to let you know we're trying to make this engaging. So again, we are so happy that you are here. So let's go ahead and get started. So like I said, we are here from COX Campus, and you're going to see a short little video clip about what that is. But it's a free website, and there are resources, courses, there's a thriving teacher community for you to join, and it's all thanks to the COX Foundation. And we would love it if you would check us out, and we're going to drop that link in the chat. But for now, let's watch this clip so you can learn more about COX Campus.
Really, the goal of the Rollins Center is to reach families, to reach teachers and students who have had generational lack of access to the science to ensure that they are getting quality language and literacy experiences. And so this comes in a variety of ways. One of the ways that we do this, as you know, is our online vehicle, the COX Campus. So the COX Campus is free and accessible all around the country thanks to our generous funders at the COX Foundation.
Given our mission of educational equity from the start and our work beyond the school through our Rollins Center for Language and Literacy and its free online COX Campus, our work is to break the cycle of illiteracy for children whose families have experienced generational lack of access or denied access to educational opportunity. Said another way, since we know exactly what to do to eradicate illiteracy, we want to be part of a movement to make that happen and to happen now.
Also important to note is the expansion of the Rollins Center and COX Campus beyond Atlanta. And so really the online vehicle, COX Campus, helps us reach other states, other countries even. And so we've been really, really blessed to be able to provide practical application of the science to families and teachers all over.
So that's who we are. And I also wanted to let you know about upcoming sessions that we'll have in the series. So next week, July 29th, we'll be talking about small group instruction. And then August 5th and August 12th, we'll be talking about assessment. So let's talk about what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to talk about read-alouds. So we have a course online called Meaningful Read-Alouds for Vocabulary and Comprehension. And again, we're going to drop another link in the chat. If you had not had time to look at that course already, you can go directly here with this link. But we're going to take a deeper dive today into that course, and the focus is going to be on vocabulary. So let's talk about our session goals. So by the end of this session, you will have learned which vocabulary words to select for instruction in a read-aloud. You'll be able to choose vocabulary words from a text and justify why they were selected. You'll also learn a simple strategy for inserting vocabulary instruction during a read-aloud, and then you'll be able to plan for something that you're going to learn about called the P.A.T strategy. So why do we do read-alouds? So the read aloud method is effective for enhancing listening comprehension, for exposing children to rich vocabulary, and for improving expressive language skills. So today, like I said before, we're going to focus on vocabulary instruction with read-alouds. So let's first talk about what the research says. So the National Reading Panel has stated that seeing vocabulary in rich context provided by authentic text rather than in isolated vocabulary drills produces robust vocabulary learning. So basically, in other words, it's best to have vocabulary instruction using context rather than giving a list and saying, okay, you have a week to learn these words and here you go. So a great way to do that is through a read aloud. So I want you to think right now, and I want you to respond in the chat. And this is a safe learning environment. Nobody's gonna get you. I want you to think about which words in your read aloud should you choose for vocabulary instruction. So what do you think? Like what words would you choose if you were looking at a read aloud, you were doing one, what kind of vocabulary words would you choose? And then in a couple of seconds, we're gonna go ahead and watch a video that's gonna tell us just that. Ooh, okay, I see unfamiliar words or words that hinder comprehension. I see tier 2 words. These are great answers, great responses coming through. Okay, so all right, tier 2 and tier 3 words. All right, so let's go ahead and watch our video. So this video is actually a clip that comes from the Read Aloud course. And we talked about this being interactive. In Zoom, there's a little reactions button, has a little smiley face, and you'll see like a heart, a smile, like a raised hand. And I want you to go ahead, and if you've heard about the 3 tiers of vocabulary, I just want you to either physically raise your hand or give me a Zoom raised hand. All right, so I see some hands raised. So let's go ahead and watch the video.
When selecting words to zero in on during your read aloud, you want to stick to words that you think your students may be unfamiliar with and have the potential to hinder comprehension if they are unknown. Those will most likely be tier 2 or tier 3 words. You may already be familiar with the 3 tiers of vocabulary. These categories are used to classify words. Is the word commonly used in everyday language? Can it be used across content areas? Is it domain specific? Words that fall in the tier 1 category are commonly used. They include words like happy, cat, run, and chair. These words rarely require direct instruction. Tier 2 words are also used frequently, however, they can be used across domains and may have multiple meanings. They include words like observe, complex, measure, and fortunate. These words require explicit instruction and are the best types of words to choose during your read alouds because children are more likely to hear and see them again in different situations. The last category is tier 3. These words are low frequency and domain specific. They include words like chrysalis, isosceles, legislative, and carnivore. You'll most likely find these words if you are reading an informational text. So you'll only want to choose these if not knowing what the word means breaks down comprehension. Although we can use these tiers to generally classify words, some may be subjective because word knowledge is personal. Now that you learned about the 3 vocabulary tiers, it's time for you to show what you know.
All right, I'm back. So as you saw from the video, tier 2 words are really those words that we want to use in instruction. And of course, if we'll use tier 3 words if you think that really there may be like a breakdown in instruction, but we really want to focus in on those tier 2 words. And so just quickly again, tier 1 is words that are commonly used. Tier 2 words are used frequently, but they can be used across domains and have multiple meanings. And tier 3 words are low frequency and domain specific. So let's look at some examples. Oh, before we look at some examples, let's go ahead and talk about why, again, let's solidify why we would choose tier 2 words. So these words are concepts that students will most likely see in other places. and due to their frequent usage in books, and other media. So these are words that you may see across content areas, across domains. They may see these in different books that they read. Also, knowing these words will have children know more sophisticated language to be more precise when discussing ideas and concepts. So they really help our kids express themselves. So we're going to do a little activity right now where you're going to guess the tier of the word. So again, if you look at your reactions, you'll see a heart, you'll see a smiley face, and then you'll see a party popper. So I'm going to say a word, and then I want you to choose the reaction to tell me which tier you think this word belongs in. Okay, so let's start with this word, photosynthesis. So what tier do you believe, by showing me your little emoji, what tier do you believe this is? All right, so I see. Oh, great. Okay, so I see that a lot of people are putting that it is a word that is tier 3. Yes, I see that a lot of people put in tier 3 because photosynthesis is a word that is specific to biology, specifically botany, which is the study of plants. So we don't really go around saying photosynthesis a lot to people, right? Unless you're in that field of study. Okay, let's try another word. What about pillow? Okay, so pillow would be a tier 1 word because we use the word pillow. Most of the time I use pillows to sleep. You know, that's a common word that most people would know. Okay, let's try one more word. What about confident? Confident. All right, confident is a tier 2 word. Okay, because we talked about it's a word that's used frequently, and it can be used across domains. It's more sophisticated. So instead of saying like something that'd be happy, right, that would be like a commonly used word, confident is more sophisticated. All right, let's move on. All right, so let me go ahead and I'm going to model how to choose a tier 2 word that is in context. So if we look at the book, The Gingerbread Man, I picked the excerpt from the book, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read the little excerpt out loud. And I'm going to go ahead and you're going to watch me as I kind of try to figure out, okay, what word could I choose, right? That is a tier 2 word. So I'm going to read the excerpt. And with raisins, they made little eyes and the little nose and the little mouth. And then with the sugar glaze, they dressed him in a fancy suit of clothes. Okay, so I'm going to look at that sentence and I'm going to try to figure out, okay, what's a tier 2 word I could use for instruction? So what word can be used in different contexts? What word may have multiple meanings? And what word may be seen more frequently, but is sophisticated? And I'm going to choose the word glaze. And I chose glaze because it can be used in different contexts, because when we think about glaze, you can glaze a ham, you may have a glazed look, your eyes may be glazed over, or you can glaze a pot. Does it have multiple meanings kind of going along with that? A glaze can mean a glossy finish, it can mean a glassy look, or it can mean a thin coating. And is it seen frequently, and is it sophisticated? Now, you may not see the word glaze like all the time, but you probably would. You may see it in the store, you may see it across multiple contexts. And then it's a word that children can use to be more precise and to be more descriptive. Now, you might have been thinking of another word. Can any of y'all think of another word that I could have chose beside glaze that was here in the chat? Fancy, yep, I could have chose fancy too. Okay, so glaze and fancy were great examples. Okay, let's move on. Okay, now guess what? I'm going to give you a chance to do this. So I'm going to show you a clip from the book Catching the Moon. And what I would like you to do, just if you can even try to remember a word or write it down, but I would like you to think of some words as you listen to the story. You're going to watch a clip, and I want you to record any tier 2 words that you hear. And if you were teaching from this read aloud, you might select them for vocabulary instruction. So again, think of those 3 questions again. Can it be used in different contexts? Does it have multiple meanings? Is it seen frequently? And is it sophisticated? Okay, so let's watch the clip and don't forget to record those words.
Welcome to the Storyline Online, brought to you by the SAG Foundation. I'm Kevin Costner, and this is
Jillian Estelle.
And we're going to read to you a book today, and it's called, you might want to show them the book. What's it called?
It's called Catching the Moon by Crystal Hubbard, illustrated by Randy Duberg.
And it's a story of a young girl's baseball dream. Marcinia Lyle loved baseball. She loved the powdery taste of dust clouds as she slid through them. She loved the way the sun heated her hair as she crouched in the outfield waiting for fly balls. And she loved the sting in her palm as a baseball slammed into it right before tagging out a runner. If there was anything in the world better than baseball, Marcinia didn't know it. She dreamed of growing up to be a professional ball player so she could play ball all the time. I wish I knew why you like baseball so much, Mama sighed as she gently washed Marcinia's hair. Marcinia shrugged. Mama often questioned Marcinia's interest in baseball, particularly when washing field dirt from her hair.
It's just fun, Marcinia said, giving her mother the same response as she always did.
Playing dolls is fun, Mama said.
Marcinia blew a puff of lather from her palm. Not as much fun as baseball.
After Marcinia crawled into bed, Papa appeared in the doorway. What did you learn in school today? He asked.
Marcinia thought for a moment. Some history.
Papa crossed his arms. And how did your team do in the game after school?
Harold got a triple in his first at-bat, and Clarence tagged out 2 runners. Marcinia said eagerly. I struck out my first time at the bat, but then I caught a deep fly ball that would have scored the tying run for the other team if I'd missed it. We won 11-10. Marcinia's smile gleamed like the noonday sun as she shared the details of her victory. We won the game, Marcinia said once more.
And you also ripped another dress, Papa said, dismayed. Then he kissed Marcinia's cheek and turned off the light, leaving her alone with the moonlight and shadows and her dreams of becoming a baseball player. The tiny house was still. Marcinia could almost hear her mother's needle and thread moving through the fabric as she sat at the kitchen table mending Marcinia's dress. After a while, Marcinia heard her papa's voice. I wish she would think about school as much as she thinks on baseball. She wants to be a ball player when she grows up, Mama said with a sad chuckle. I just want her to be happy. She'll be what every other girl in this neighborhood will be, Papa grumbled. A teacher, a nurse, or a maid, Mama said softly.
I'm going to score 3 runs tomorrow. Marcinia promised the darkness as she clapped her hands over her ears. I'm going to hit a home run, too.
The next day after school, Marcinia went to the playground. The other girls stayed on the hardtop to play hopscotch, jump rope, or jacks. The boys were huddled at the mound talking quietly. They cast excited glances at the man who was watching the field from the bleachers. Do you know who he is? Harold asked Marcinia as she joined the group. He tipped his head toward the man.
That there is Mr. Gabby Street. He's running a baseball day camp this summer.
Marcinia knew about Gabby Street. He was the manager for the St. Louis Cardinals. He had led the Cardinals to the National League pennant in 1930, and the Cardinals had topped the next year by winning the 1931 World Series.
What's he want? Marcinia asked.
Kids for his baseball camp, Harold said. It's going to be right here on the field every day except Sunday. Sundays are game days.
What is the cost? Marcinia asked.
It's free. It's free, said Clarence. All you need is your own glove and baseball cleats, Harold added.
Marcina could hardly contain her excitement. She would do anything to be one of the players in Mr. Street's camp.
All right. So what we're going to do now is I would like for some of you to share out, to come and raise your hand, and then we'll bring you off of mute so that you can share out with us what word you chose and how did you choose that word. Okay, so I'll give you a second and then we'll choose some people to share out with us. Don't be shy. Okay, I see Nicole is
I don't know
raising
how to
her
raise
hand.
my hand.
Oh, in the reactions, there is
In the
oh,
reactions,
not in reactions. I'm sorry. In the where is it? I thought it was in the reaction. There's a hand raised. Oh yeah, it says raise hand.
I just
Yeah.
have the little ones that only stay for a second. That's why I was like, wait, where's my mute button? Okay.
Okay, Nicole, can you tell us what you chose?
So I was trying to keep up, but the main I heard two that stood out to me was gleamed. Just I think he said something about her face was gleam, or she gleamed with excitement, and that definitely could have several different meanings depending on the context.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit more sophisticated than like excited or happy.
Yeah.
And then struck. I remember she said like I struck out or something, like you can be struck with something or struck with excitement, or you know, in the text she was talking about she struck out in regards to like having a home run. So those definitely can have different meanings depending on the context as well.
Oh, that's great. Great examples. Thank you, Nicole. Would anyone else like to share out?
I identified slammed. It could be used in different ways, and also I marked interest because it could be used in terms of her interest, or it was used in a different context as well.
Great. I'm loving this. Let's have one more person.
I did triple. Because I mean we use it in math all the time, but what does it mean when it comes to baseball? If they're not a baseball person, they may not know what that means.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much for sharing. And like I said, we can justify those answers because you're right. In this context of baseball, if the children had never learned how to play baseball, they may not know what that means. So they may just lose, you know, the understanding of what's happening. So great job. So I just want to share out with you some other words that were in the story that you might have thought or you might have recorded. So we're going to show the next slide. And then here's some more words: crouched, shrugged, lather, eagerly, gleamed, dismayed, mending, and huddled. And you can add in all the other words that you said for those exact other reasons. So let's move on. All right. So what does vocabulary instruction look like? Because now we know what kind of words we can look for, right? So, but what does it look like when you actually are instructing around vocabulary with a read aloud? So an effective read aloud consists of different components, and you can interject vocabulary instruction throughout each one of those components. So you can do that during your read aloud, like when you're actually reading the story, by using the P.A.T strategy, which is what we'll talk about next. And with the pre-selected words that you have chosen. And then after you read the text, you can use a vocabulary routine to more explicitly teach those words. And we're not going to get into that in this video, but if you watch the Read Aloud course, you will see that in action. So let's talk more about the P.A.T strategy. So the P.A.T strategy is basically, it's an acronym, and each of the letters stands for a word. So let's start with the P. So P starts with point to the picture. So that's just what it sounds like. So for example, if I was reading Read Aloud and the word shrug was in it, or smug, excuse me, smug was in it, and then there was a picture of somebody that had a smug look on their face, I might point to their face to show like a smug look. The next letter in the acronym is ACT. So act out the word. So basically you act out the word. So like, let's say we were talking about the word quiver, right? And I might say, as I'm saying what quiver means, to shake slightly, I might actually like shake slightly to show that. The next thing is tell the definition. So the most important thing to know about this is that when you tell the definition, you want to give a student-friendly definition or a child-friendly definition. And we'll go more into what a child-friendly definition is. So when you are actually reading a story, and I'll model this for you in a little bit, when you're actually reading a read aloud and you come across a word, you want to define that word that you pre-selected, and then you can use one of these 3 strategies. And sometimes you may use all 3, you may use 2, you may just use 1, but the one that you always need to do is telling a child-friendly definition. So let's look at the P.A.T strategy. So in this video, this is also in the Read Aloud course, you're going to get a quick definition and you're going to see some real teachers using the P.A.T strategy. So let's watch the video.
I want to introduce you to a vocabulary strategy called PAT. PAT is an acronym that stands for point to the picture, act out the word, tell with a child-friendly definition. Teachers can choose one or more of these strategies to define words in the text. However, always tell a child-friendly definition. Let's look at examples for each one. In this first video, Ms. Lindsay points to an illustration to help define a word.
Strapped into the cockpit. That's the place where the pilot sits.
In this next clip, Ms. Dawson acts out a word.
Keeping blacks separate from whites was called
segregation.
You already know that word. Excellent. It was the law in some states, and we already know segregation means when people are kept apart based on their color. They're placed into different groups. Excellent.
In this last example, Ms. Lindsay tells a child-friendly definition.
Dear Rosie made gadgets and gizmos she loved. So a gadget or gizmo is a small machine.
Pick the strategy that makes the most sense or use a combination. Warning.
Okay, we're going to stop the video here. And I wanted to go more into the child-friendly definition. So you have your words, right? You're like, okay, I know how to select my words. And then you're like, okay, now I need to find a definition. But let me let you in on a little secret. Most dictionary definitions are sometimes too brief, too vague, or they're too technical. So you may be like, okay, so then what am I supposed to do? So I want you to look at this slide coming up, and I want you to look at these 2 definitions for the word benevolent. So there's an example 1 at the top with the blue arrow, example 2 at the bottom with the orange arrow. And the first definition says for benevolent, if you describe a person in authority as benevolent, you mean that they are kind and fair. Now let's look at example 2 for benevolent. Marked by or disposed to doing good, organized for the purpose of doing good, marked by or suggestive of goodwill. Out of example 1 and example 2, if you were going to give a definition to a child or use it in your read aloud, which one do you think you would use? Which one is more child friendly, example 1 or example 2? Yep, I see a lot of ones. You got y'all, you got it. So example 1 is more child friendly. So you may be like, okay, where can I find that definition? So let me tell you where you can find it. Let's look at the next slide. So there is something called the Colville Dictionary, and it's free. You can find this online, and you can see the link below. And then we'll drop also the link in the chat for that a little later. But the Colville Dictionary is a great resource for finding child-friendly definitions, because these definitions are kind of based on the way we speak and how we write every day. So when you go there and you click on, and I'm gonna walk you through this, we're going to show you the actual website and do an example. But when you click on English for Learners tab, you're going to find definitions and examples that are specifically geared towards English language learners, which are also great for our children when they're learning new words. So let's go to the website so we can look at an example. Okay, so that's the link that I shared, and we're going to look at, I talked about the word quiver earlier, like acting out the word quiver, and let's go ahead and look at it. So what you will notice here is you see the tabs up at the top, and there's one in red. So those were the different types I was saying. So that's the learner definition. So if you look at this word, it says, if something quivers, it shakes with very small movements. Now let's look at another example of a definition, the American definition of quiver, just so you can see like the difference. So if you go where the red tab is, you go to the next one, that's great. Yeah, let's look at that one. And then you'll see this definition is to shake with tremolo. I got a little tongue tie right there. Tremulous motion, tremble, the act or condition of quivering. So if you didn't know what quivering is and you say the act or condition of quivering, you're like, okay, I don't know what that is. So let's go back to the learner. And then another thing you'll notice here on this dictionary is, if you scroll a little bit up to the top, is that they have bubbles, and this represents the frequency in the word. So how frequent the word is that when we use it. So that's also another clue. They can give another clue whether this is a valid word that you should teach across content, because it'll talk about how common it is in our language. So that's the Cobalt Dictionary. Again, you have the link, and it's a great resource. I used to use this when I was teaching, so I didn't have to rack my brain with trying to find a definition and find a good child-friendly definition. So let's move on. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I actually am going to model the PAT strategy with you using the book Wolf. And as I do this, I would love for you to pay attention to what I'm doing, because I'm going to come back, and when we join the chat, I want you to tell me what you noticed I did in relation to the PAT strategy. Okay? So here's the book Wolf. Hopefully you can see these pages. I know it's a little, okay. And let me see if you see me. Okay. After walking for many days, a wolf wandered into a quiet little town. He was tired and hungry. His feet ached, and he had only a little money that he kept for emergencies. Then he remembered, there's a farm outside this village, he thought. I'll find some food there. As he peered over the farm fence, peer is something you do when you look at something very hard, usually because it's difficult to see. He saw a pig, a duck, and a cow reading in the sun. The wolf had never seen animals read before. I'm so hungry that my eyes are playing tricks on me, he said to himself. But he really was very hungry and didn't stop to think about it for long. The wolf stood up tall and took a deep breath. And he leaped at the animals with a howl. Oh! Chickens and rabbits ran for their lives, but the duck, the pig, and the cow didn't budge. What's that awful noise, complained the cow. I can't concentrate on my book. Wolf made a lot of noise, so the animals weren't able to concentrate. That means they were unable to pay attention or focus on what they were doing. Just ignore it, said the duck. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there. And I want you to think about what I just did and what you saw with the PAT strategy. And I would love it again if you would raise your hand and just comment out on what you saw. Yes, someone said gestured with my hand. I did gesture hand movement. And that was for peered. Oh, thank you, Tiffany. Yes, I did. And so for one of the words, I actually acted it out and told the definition for peered. Yep. And explain the words in the context of reading. Y'all were paying attention. Thank you. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to our next slide. All right, so you may have guessed already now that when I have modeled something, I want you to practice next. So we're going to go ahead for our next activity. It's going to be a breakout room activity. So you're actually going to be working in small groups, and you are going to use the words that we use for Catching the Moon. If you remember when you watched the video for Catching the Moon, the story about the little girl who loved playing baseball, and you're going to take those words and you are actually going to fill out a template together where you're going to find student-friendly definitions for the words that are already selected. And then you would think also, like, what other components would you do? Would you act it out, the word, or would you touch the picture to help to point to the picture to help you to clarify the word? And then we're going to share out when we come back. But I'm going to show you the actual templates that you're going to be using. Here's the key. You have to download the template before you go to the breakout group. So I'm going to remind you again, when it's time to break out, you must download this. It's going to be, the download link is going to be in the chat so that you know what to do. So let me show you what you're going to get. This, you're going to get a list of words. Also on that list, you'll have the link again to the Colville Dictionary. And then you'll also have a link to the video of the story again, if you want to watch it again. You don't have to, but if you want to see something again, like a picture, maybe you would want to, an image you would want to point to. And also in the template, you're going to have the P.A.T strategy planning template. So that strategy is outlined at the top. So the words are on the left, and then you will write down the definition. Again, either making up your own or looking in the Colville Dictionary. You'll say like what gestures you would use if you're going to act out the word. And then if there is a picture you want to point to, just, you know, you can say yes or no, I'll point to the picture. If you don't want to watch the video again, or if you remember what was in there, you say what you would want to point to. All right, and I believe we're going to go to the breakout rooms. I see one person says they are unable to download the link. Is anyone else having that same issue? If you're unable to download the link, okay, so a lot of people, if you're unable to download the PowerPoint, then if we can go back to those words, so everybody can maybe copy those words, and then you know what the P.A.T strategy is, and then you can still plan. So if you can't download, write these words down, and then you can just talk about it in your group. And then when we come back, you can share out the definitions that you did find. So we'll leave this here for a second.
How about if I'm driving?
Be careful. All right, we are back. I had a great conversation with a small group, and I'm hopeful that you guys had a great conversation as well. I know we had some technical difficulties with downloading the activity, but I would love for someone, maybe just one or two people, to share out what it was like finding those child-friendly definitions, or just anything that you just got from your group. Oh, I see somebody say great conversation. So come on and share out.
We struggled with the word mending because just that's a term that we would normally think of like sewing, and we know that that's kind of unfamiliar to students. So what we suggested is possibly offering a definition and applying it to a cell phone screen breaking and how we would need to mend the screen back, just to make that more, I guess, understandable for the student.
That's a great, yes, great.
We actually had a great conversation in our group as well, and we were able to get through the first four. I think Anisha found it easy to locate the words on the website that you gave us, and everybody was able to really kind of like we got all the act outs and all the point to the pictures. So it was really good conversation, and yeah, it was kind of fun to do. I think we had the best group. We had the best group. Yay. Me, Anisha, Janet, and Vanessa, we had the best group. So.
And I want to add to that what Cheryl was saying. One of the things that we also talked about, I agree, the website is super helpful. So thank you for sharing that. But also we talked about how if there are some words that aren't in the book, you know, because we're supposed to be choosing these prior to reading the book, maybe we can have a picture already there that we can point to if it's not, you know, if you can't point to it in the actual book. So that's something else we kind of talked about as well.
Yes, 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 yes.
Our group also talked about anywhere we could have the kids to actually act out the behavior, that it would help to stick in their minds, like show me a shrug, show me how you crouch, that kind of thing, to help the kids cement that in their learning.
Love it. All right. So does anyone else want to share out? Because I know I'm looking at the time. I don't want to rush out. Does anybody have a burning share out they want to share with us? Those were so great. Thank you guys. I appreciate you. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. All right, so it's time to reflect. So I would like you to think about one key takeaway you got from this training. And what we're going to do next is you're going to go to a link, and you're just going to fill in, and then we're going to see everybody's comments come up. Your name is not on it, so don't worry about that. This is anonymous. And just to see your key takeaway from this training. We're just going to give you some time. We're going to play some relaxing music and let you reflect. Because you know, when you teach, we don't take time to reflect a lot. So I want to give you this time. And the link is in the chat. All right, guys. I see tears, 2 words, the P.A.T strategy, preparing, a lot of planning and preparing ahead of time. Love it. Okay, let's move on. All right, so I just want to revisit our goals for the session and to see did we accomplish those goals. So did we learn which vocabulary words or what kind of vocabulary words to select for instruction? Yep. Did we get to choose vocabulary words from a text and justify how we select them? We did. Did we learn a strategy for inserting vocabulary during instruction? We did, and that was the P.A.T strategy. And don't forget, there's also another strategy to do after, but you'll have to go to COX Campus to find that one out. But we didn't do that in this session. And did we plan for using the P.A.T strategy using pre-selected vocabulary words? And we did. So we accomplished all of that in a small amount of time. So I want to go ahead and I would love to talk to you more about COX Campus. And again, like I said before, here it is. Yay! Thank you. I appreciate that. I would like to go ahead and talk to you more about COX Campus, and which is a free, again, website that has this course online and lots of other free resources. All you have to do is sign up. We have a discussion question that is already on COX when you sign up, so that you can be part of our teacher community, and it's just talking about Read-Alouds, and then we'll drop a link for that in the chat if you wish to join up and register, and you can go ahead and use that, respond to this prompt. And I want to remind you again of our upcoming courses that we have coming again next week, which is small group instruction and also about assessment. And I also would love to tell you that, well, let me ask you this quick question. Okay, are you interested in bringing free in-person professional training to your school or district? If you are in Maryland, North Carolina, Colorado, or Arizona, the Cox Foundation has provided additional funding to support free in-person and virtual learning to your organization. And you can reach out to Jen Connor, and we're going to drop her email in the chat. And it is jconnor@foundationsinc.org, and you can reach out to her to find out more about that type of free training. Okay, so we have come to the end. We only have a couple of minutes left. And I wanted to ask you, well, thank you so much again. First, I want to thank you again for attending this session. You have been a great group. I love talking to the people that I got to talk to in my breakout session. And I'm glad that you guys enjoyed working together. And I would like to ask you, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and enter them into the chat, and I will answer them if I can. Or even if you have questions for other people right now that are on this call or this session from other places, other teachers and educators, if you would like to ask them questions about what they like to do, we would love to hear right now. And of course, I want to value your time. So I'm looking to see if anybody has any questions. Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Janet. Thanks, Cheryl. Thanks, Pamela. Thanks, Anisha. Oh, thank you. Okay, I see. I think I saw a question. Oh, okay, this is a great question. Okay, so someone said, I absolutely love Cox Campus. Why teach vocabulary during reading as opposed to prior to reading the text? So let me give you the best possible answer that I can. So the research has shown from Fisher and Frey that when you use the vocabulary in context of the, so when you're reading, so students understand more based off of when you're reading it in context. So usually when you show the words isolate, now I'm not saying that you cannot introduce the words at all beforehand, but quickly. So you may have something like, I know we were talking in our group about having like pictures, or I think somebody else brought this up about like having the word and then having like a picture related to the word and then also posting it in the room. So the main thing is that you don't want to like go so deep into the vocabulary instruction like front loaded ahead of time. It's more important to have it in context, and then after the read aloud, then you can teach it even more explicitly in other contexts outside of the story. But because you're reading it within the context of a story, the kids understand it better. I hope I'm answering that question well. Let me know if you still have a question. Okay, thank you. Someone said, what if you had to explain the word blue? A picture or in the text would help. So again,
well, like what you were saying, I was just
okay,
kind of helping out there, because when you're
thank
using
you.
a word by itself, like on a flashcard, it's hard to conceptualize what it means. But if I were to show you a picture of the word blue while I was talking about it or in context, it helps a lot more than just saying, well, it's just a color. Well, that doesn't tell me anything.
Yes. Thank you, Angela.
Just oversimplified answer on that one.
No, but it's good. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I think we are at our time. And again, I loved having this time with you guys. I appreciate it. I know you could have been doing other things.